Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's video. I've obtained the permission from Mr. Lim Kwan, Secretary General of the AXF, to do a video series on the Sandwich House opening. It was a book by the legendary Grandmaster Hu Ronghua, whose achievements are too many to be listed in these few short slides. And for those who are interested, please visit the link given in the slide there for more information on the legendary Grandmaster, who is, in my opinion, perhaps the greatest Xiangqi player of all time. The Sandwich House Treatise is one of his books, and although it's a very short, thin book, it demonstrates many opening principles, and the logic behind each of the moves or variations is worthy to study. Although some of the variations may be slightly outdated, the principles are still very much practical in use. And I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did when I went through the book many years ago. Incidentally, this copy was given to me by my very good friend, Mr. Chen Yunhao. We both attended Grandmaster Hu Ronghwa's very short seminar when we were very young, about 30 years ago, when he was in Singapore. So there is his autographed edition of the book. And without further ado, let us start this video. In the first chapter of the book, the Grandmaster analyzed the reasons why the Sandwich House defense was not as popular as the screen house defense or same direction cannons, which are more often seen in over-the-top board play or in tournaments. There were 3 boards that were listed, and we will go through all 3 of them with the comments by the Grandmaster. And please try to follow the logic, and I think it's very simple and easy to master, and it will definitely give a boost to your game. Okay, this will be the first board in the first chapter of the book. So for beginners, this red will have started with the central cannon and developed the right horse as a proper horse. This is considered one of the most orthodox ways of opening a game of Xiangqi. For the first move, black would defend the central pawn with a horse, and the hallmark of the Sandwich House defense would be the cannon at the palace corner. Although this move can be made slightly later, it is usually played immediately after red moves the horse, so that it will discourage red from developing his left horse as a proper horse. If red were to develop the left horse as a proper horse, black would use the cannon to apply a skewer and gain material. In the ancient manuals, one of the most common ways of attacking the Sandwich House defense was via the central file. And in the ancient manuals, black would often defend passively after red had pushed the central pawn forward. Such a strategy would often result in a very passive position for black. Nowadays, if red were to charge the central pawn forward early, black could move his palace corner to the central file and to counter with a central cannon of his own. So in this board, red would attack very aggressively and quickly by charging developing the right horse via the central file. And in this board, red has chosen to sacrifice his central pawn in just a very short 5 plies. So what were the motives for doing so? In return, red would hope that he will be able to develop his horses
through the central file, and also link them up at the center. And although a pawn was sacrificed, it would also allow his chariot to control black's pawn rank. So this was the main strategy behind red's attack, and in this situation, as can be seen in this situation, red would have achieved his goals. So the current position shown here can be deemed as a success for red. And black would be forced to move the chariot to the riverbank to protect. This would be a move made out of desperation. What would the reader might, or the viewer might wonder, would p5 plus 1 for black be possible? This variation was examined in the book, and we shall see what the Grandmaster had prepared. After advancing the black central pawn across the river, red could defend with h7 plus 6 or c8 plus 2. So what would be the difference in this between these two moves? If red were to advance his horse in this manner with h7 plus 6, he would be ready for a elbow horse attack and also threaten to capture the black pawn. If the black pawn moved away, say p5 equals to 4, the red horse would also be able to attack and capture the black cannon for a checkmate. So the black pawn would not dare to move, and the only way that black could continue would usually be p5 plus 1, and red would continue with c5 minus 1, refusing to give up control of the central file. And from here on, red would have many options to continue this game. One would be c8 plus 1 to threaten the central pawn, the black central pawn, or h8 plus 7. And somehow, one way or another, the black pawn would be lost, and this would result in a loss of tempo for black. So at this position, if black were to push the pawn forward, red would simply attack with h7 plus 6. And however, c8 plus 2 at this time would not be a good idea, because black could defend in this manner, and red would turn the tables. Black would turn the tables instead. So the correct way to attack would be with h7 plus 6 and not c8 plus 2. So that was why it was not a good idea to advance the black's central pawn at this point in time. So back to the main line. Red was forced to move his chariot to the riverbank to defend, and also to make room for his king to move if red were to try to attack with the elbow horse. Again, at this point in time, advancing the central pawn will be another move that will be made out of desperation. If black did not advance the pawn across the river, red will continue to move to play c7 plus 5 to attack the black chariot, and black will be left in a predicament on how he would deal with this situation. And although red had wasted one move to deliver a check and then retreat his horse, it would be very obvious that all of red's pieces except for this chariot have commanded very important lines and intersections on the board. And if black were to continue with r9 equals to 8 to develop his left chariot, red will capture the central black pawn for a significant advantage. And if black were to continue with p5 equals to 4, check, and black will be in deep trouble. So if the horse moved, it will be red will be prepared to play r7 plus 3 for the attack. So in any case, red will have a superior advantage in this situation, and the main reason for black's predicament would be the passive movement of the elephant and the advisors too early in the game. So although this was a very short board, it pointed out some of the inadequacies of the sandwich horse defense, or the way that the sandwich horse defense was played in the ancient times. So we shall go to the next board to examine what the Grandmaster had prepared. In the second board, red would use the central cannon with third pawn advancement to attack. Red will use the 5-8 cannons to attack, and the sandwich horse defense would simply fall apart. So instead of advancing the chariot across the river or attacking with the central pawn, in this variation p3 plus 1 was played, and this move would allow for development of red's right horse and also stall the development of black's horse in the same file. Now, this is a common tactic that is used, and usually when one player pushes either the third pawn, the other player would counter by pushing forward the other pawn. And since p3 plus 1 was played, red would choose to develop his horse as an edge horse in this board. Again, there was passive defense with e3 plus 5, and red in this situation would advance his left cannon across the river to black's pawn rank to attack, and red will be prepared to move c8 equals to 7 to hinder the development of the black horse or attack the pawn. Choosing to exchange pawns will be a natural move to make in this situation. So if the red cannon were allowed to play c8 equals to 3, red would have significant gains in the game ahead. This position was also analyzed in Yang Guanglin's very famous Chinese Chess Manual Volume 2, or 中国象棋谱第二集. There were two variations that were provided for black, which were h6 plus 4 and r1 equals to 2. And the Grandmaster Hu Ronghua analyzed these two variations in this book also. So the first variation would be h6 plus 4, where black would threaten to attack the red cannon. One of the biggest problems with this move was that the black horse would be charging into enemy territory alone, and there would be no backup for the black horse. And usually when this is done, the horse itself will become a target of attack for red, and the black horse will become vulnerable, and it will not be an exception in this variation. So that is why modern day Xiangqi opening theory would advocate that that sufficient backup would be needed before advancing your horses into enemy territory. So in the first variation, red will continue with i8 plus 6, and black would choose to attack to capture the cannon with h7 h4 minus 3. One might wonder, would it be possible for the black horse to capture the red cannon, black will still have a hard time ahead, because as can be seen in this situation, red will have much space to move his to develop his right horse, and the black's pawn rank was already controlled by red's chariot and cannon combination. Also, the black horse had traveled black horse had traveled 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to trade for red's cannon, which had only made one move. So in terms of tempo, red would have lost tempi in this situation. So it would not be ideal for black to capture red's central cannon in this situation. So in the book, in Yang Guangling's book, h4 minus 3 to capture the offending red cannon was played, and at this point we can see that red will have mobilized his chariots, horses and cannons to attack. The number of effective moves that red had made thus far was 8. It will be 1, 2, 3, the cannon 4, 5, and the left chariot 6, 7, 8. So red would have made 8 effective moves, while black would have only seemed to have played 1 elephant, 1 horse, 1 cannon, and 1 pawn and 2 pawn moves for only 5 moves. So in terms of tempo, red would have increased his tempi by 2 moves in this situation. So red will command a huge advantage in this case. So back to the back to the Falkland Road. So after playing R9 equals to 8, we examine H6 plus 4 as the first variation. What would happen if black played R1 equals to 2 to develop his right chariot instead? Red will take the central pawn by force and threaten to attack the black chariot, and in the ensuing exchange, red will gain material. So at this point in time, red would both have the positional and material advantage in this situation. So if black wanted to keep his chances alive, or try to attack with h4 plus 3 for an angular horse checkmate, this threat could be easily neutralized. So at this point in time, red would have a huge advantage, and this was another reason why the sandwich horse defense did not catch on in the early days. So to the third board. In the third board, red would use the 5-9 cannons to attack, and also advance both pawns for the double-headed snake pawns. Okay, these would be the moves that were given in the manual. Because of passive defending with the elephant, red would choose to develop both the 3rd and 7th pawn. So this would give the red horses much ample room for development, and while at the same time restrict the movement of the black horses. This tactic is still often used in tournaments nowadays. Although the black cannon would not have any specific target to attack, it is one of the ways to play the black cannon, as to allow for development, and also to see how red would respond in this situation. At this point in time, Once red has advanced his horse to the riverbank, the black cannon must block the red horse to prevent it from attacking. Otherwise, if this was not played, red would be prepared to attack the central black pawn, and after trading, he will get a central cannon, which would be threatening, and this would allow red to gain a positional advantage. One might wonder, wouldn't losing the central pawn so early in the game be questionable? But in fact, this sacrifice was a very good move. It would force black to capture the pawn, and by doing so, many lines will be open for red to develop his other pieces. If black must capture the central pawn, if he tried to play r2 equals to 3, black will be in a predicament because there will not be many good lines to continue to play. If r2 plus 3 were played, black could simply develop his left horse via the center, and black would be in deep trouble. So after threatening to capture, the red horse will simply retreat and prepare to develop from the center, and there will be many options for red to continue, and red will have a very significant advantage. And some of the possible attacking options will be h7 plus 5, h3 plus 5, r8 plus 7, etc. So at this point in time, red will have the significant advantage. So citing these three boards as an example, Grandmaster Hu Ronghua believed that passive or too passive play from black was the result of such a passive position for black, and he proceeded to make modifications to the way the sandwich horse defense could be played, and they have since been implemented into the opening system itself. And nowadays, the sandwich horse defense is very commonly seen as a counter to the central cannon, and it remains one of the most effective counters for black. And I will find time to do the next chapter, hopefully very soon, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Lim Kwan again for permission to use the book to make videos, because the rights to this book are owned by the AXF. And thank you.